Hey, salute friends. Today we will be chatting about some fragrances that I think are modern with a classic outlook. This is a style that I have been enjoying for the last couple of years. So to clarify what I mean by that, I do not mean modern classics in that they are fragrances that have been released recently and on their way to become classics like Dior Homme for example. I also don't mean older fragrances like L'Heure Bleue from Guerlain or Number 22 from Chanel that came out a century ago and are still relevant today. I will eventually make a list on those two topics. This is going to be a list based on those that have been released since 2000 but strongly reference or inspired by other fragrances that came before them, loosely speaking. They may be taking that DNA, adding something new, a twist, continuing that spirit by modernizing them, taking them in a different direction, and so forth. So those are the kind of stuff that we will be looking at today. First, I'll share some honorable mentions. This is Les Nuits from Astier de Villatte, composed by Dominique Roupillon. This is a recreation based on a vial of scent used by George Sand in the 1800s, just with modern techniques and compliance standards. This is a powdery, mossy, damp, earthy, rose patchouli fragrance with a leathery, ambery dry down, all enveloped in this ethereal iris. I have not frequently seen a scent with these kinds of dark, rich notes feature iris prominently. Fantastic fragrance. The point being that it came out in 2020, but the scent profile is something that would be easily believable if it was from 1900s or 1800s. Similarly, this is Rêve d'Ocean from Orisa Legrand from 2012, but is said to be a recreation of one of their older perfumes. This is an aldehydic incense fragrance, very much the churchy, liturgical kind. The X factor here being that this has a lot of creaminess, powderiness from the smooth benzoin and this pink rosy quality, which makes this much more optimistic and joyful to wear in contrast to the cold incense fragrances that we are used to. Then from 2006, there is Éloge du Traître from État Libre d'Orange by Antoine Maisondieu, which is pretty much a modern take on Caron's yet again. So it is green, earthy, spicy, aromatic with a lot of pine, sage, artemisia and cloves. Has a superb earthy leather in the dry down. Unfortunately now discontinued, but it is one of the best Eldos that went for more of the traditional route instead of their avant-garde style. Then there are some I have talked a lot about on the channel. Roc, a floral ambery horsey leather from Roberto Greco and Christopher Sheldrake. Cuir Moresque, again by Sheldrake, an IBQ floral leather fragrance hinting at something like Nice 10. And even Guerlain Habit Rouge Privé by Delphine Jelk, obviously referencing the original Habit Rouge. Many others from Guerlain, Houbigant, like the re-released Fougère Royale, Goutal, Caron, Chanel, Hermès Bellamy Vetiver, Equipage Geranium. Even Dior Sauvage Elixir could fit in this list, to be honest, as all of them take from yesteryear releases. Now let's get into the actual list of 10 in no particular order, starting with Beau de Jour from Tom Ford at number 10. This is a straight up aromatic amber fougère fragrance from 2019, created once again by Antoine Maisondieu. Lots of lavender and herbs like mint, rosemary, clary sage and basil, bringing the Provençal herb profile. Dries down to a benzoin patchouli scent. It definitely references your old school masculine fougères like Davidoff by Zeno, but more of a Tom Fordized version of that scent profile. This is a departure from his more contemporary scents, a smell that would suit a well-groomed gentleman, one of the better modern fougères which I think we need more of. Speaking of Provençal herbs, let's look at one in a similar vein. This is Cologne Officinale by Healy from 2023. This features pretty much similar herbs as Beau de Jour, basil, sage and rosemary, with an added bitter green galbanum. Where it differs is that the lavender is a minor player here. On top of that, there's a big oak moss with those herbs. Then there is also a Marseille soap accord which ties everything together. It also has a bit of that salty seaweed marine accord that Healy likes to use in all of his creations, giving it some edge. Smells like a modern vintage fragrance pretty much. Next up is Gucci Guilty Absolute at number 8 from 2017, created by Alberto Morillas by going completely against the grain of what this line represented for some odd reason. But good for us cause it's a really amazing fragrance, mainly focused on an industrial, medicinal, unapologetic, rugged leather. Lots of patchouli, stale cedar and inky vetiver in the base giving structure. Some hints of florals like jasmine and violet. This seems to take inspiration from the likes of Dior Fahrenheit and switches things up in a completely different direction. One of the unique designer fragrances in recent times. At number 7, let's go to Chanel, in some ways literally, as this scent is supposedly sprayed at their flagship boutique at 31 Rue Cambon. Created by Jacques Polge and Christopher Sheldrake. This is one of the most abstract scents that I have ever smelled. Supposed to be a floral woody chypre, but on the surface smells like its own singular smell. If anything, a floral woody musk. Plush Chanel florals, rose, jasmine, ylang, all topped by this alluring iris. Again dries down to Chanel exclusive kind of patchouli and sandalwood with a hint of oak moss. Maybe a small nod to Mitsuko in there. So yes, upon closer look, can pass for a neo chypre, but it is rather distinctive, smells like an expensive dress. I have even called it as a scent of a sweaty supermodel after a ramp walk. Quite an exquisite, luxurious perfume, one of the best exclusives. Going to Terre d'Hermès Parfum at number 6, which happens to be my favorite iteration of the fragrance from 2009 by Jean-Claude Ellena. This takes that bitter orange, flinty, woody, earthy, vetiver scent profile of the original EDT and makes it more condensed, not as airy, flinty or spacious. Here the base is augmented by a rather prominent oak moss accord, a bigger cedar, more vetiver and some ambery touches. Less metallic, not so evident ISO super and more earthiness. I think Hermès even considers this a woody chypre, where the EDT was considered more of a citrus, woody, spicy scent. It does not take from a particular old fragrance, but that element is in here which gives it that classic vibe. At number 5, let's go to Guerlain Iris Torréfié from 2020, created by Delphine Jelk. This is a musky iris leather fragrance with a distant echo of coffee being roasted, some mild cardamom, tea, musky ambrette with some vanillic sweetness and a soft suede-like leather, supposed to represent a Parisian woman at a cafe with her lipstick on. What really does it here for me is the iris oris, which is very much a vintage Guerlainard style of iris, which you usually see as a supporting note in many of their perfumes. Here it is brought to the forefront and shines in all its glory. It does not end there, it is also modern, hitting at something like Dior Homme Intense, which is fantastic as well. Honestly, I think this is Delphine's best work at Guerlain. At number 4, after Iris in Paris, let's go to Patchouli with Jovois Psychedelique from 2011 by Jacques Flory. Now the combination of amber and patchouli has been tackled plenty of times in the past, notable one being Reminiscence Patchouli from 1970. This one refines that scent profile and makes it more classy, polished and palatable by today's standards, and that is by adding a lot of amber, vanilla, musks and some florals. This is less earthy, mossy and swampy than the vintage, resulting in this borderline gourmand fudgy patchouli. Overall, one of the better modern patchouli-centered fragrances. Next up, let's do New York Intense from Patricia Nicolai. This gets a lot of praise as one of the best modern masculine woody aromatic scents in recent years. Others have also criticized it for being derivative of other scents like Creed Bois de Portugal, Chanel pour Monsieur and the original New York from '89. I am kind of in the middle. I just like it, think it's good. It is clearly a scent profile that borrows from old school masculines, so has those herbal aromatic notes like lavender, thyme, artemisia and petit gras. Additionally, warm spices resins, animalics, old musks, and oak moss, resulting in a very vintage-esque scent profile, and yet was released in 2014. At number 2, let's do an amber from one of the most underrated niche houses, which I am thinking of diving into again. This is Parfum d'Empire Ambre Rouge from 2003, created by Marc-Antoine Corticchiato. It has this classic, smoky, resinous, balsamic, epic amber accord in the center, but then seems to use contemporary musks and leathery birch tar and some interesting, sparkling, imperial, boozy top notes like vodka and champagne, giving it that modern outlook. One of the better ambers in recent times, and I think it is the most popular from this house. Last but not least, at number 1, let's go to a house whose entire collection in some ways is rooted in the past and paying homage to classic fine French perfumery. This is Frederic Malle's Iris Poudre by Pierre Bourdon from their debut lineup in 2000. This clearly takes from classic aldehydic florals like Chanel No. 5 and does a more iris heavy, woodier version of that scent profile. If I oversimplify it, that is. Lots of aldehydes, floral heart of iris, rose, jasmine, ylang and violet, dries down to a musky, clean sandalwood. It is so pretty, powdery, perfumey, comes across upscale, blousy and opulent. Really a black tie, red carpet, ball gown kind of smell. Just a spellbinding iris fragrance. So those have been some fragrances from my collection that are modern yet have a connection to the past. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care and ciao.